This kid playing baseball maybe?
Tournament?
I know they got a lot going on, I know. I'm just glad we have a quorum. Well, Jim's not going to be here, so, but usually when we have a project like this one, ours, you know, we take two out of the mix all of a sudden, so
Yeah.
it's good that we have.
Yeah, it's good to have Joe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we need, that was a little confusing with the attorney at the last meeting. Allowing people to go down and testify in that, but he said he'd check on it, but it doesn't apply to design review, and it's got.
You mean when we had our joint session?
Yeah, when we had our conference, when we had our.
This, yeah, right.
Down here.
And what were you saying?
Well, when he was pretty adamant that if you're serving on the board, you can't go down and.
And I remember.
And we said, and then we would never.
I like the picture of the turkey.
I know, I love that.
Represent projects all the time.
My friends live in
Yeah,
Legacy
I think he.
Oh, yeah.
and their house backs up to an empty mint field on the other side of Homer. And they've got a pair of,
Yeah, because it's.
I'd like to see that.
what are those called?
I'd like to
Turkeys.
see the record fixed.
Oh, is that a turkey? Okay, it's not
Recusal
turkey,
from
it's
approving the
pheasants.
minutes.
Maybe it isn't. Is it a pheasant?
Consent agenda
Could
too,
be.
that's kind of ridiculous.
Anyway.
Like whether-
they've got a
whether
pair of
you- if you weren't
pheasants out there.
present at the previous
Phyllis
meeting.
Bill.
That's been kind of,
That, or if you
General
needed to
forever.
recuse from one of them, I really think that should be just an
Kitchen,
approval as
much
to
of the-
form.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I haven't
The
seen, I
the
mean,
consent,
I grew up on a
yeah,
farm,
yeah.
so we had
Not
pheasants, but
that,
they
if
ate
you're
our
saying if
corn,
you weren't
so
even present, maybe you
my
could
dad was
still
always trying to
vote.
get rid
Okay,
of them.
yeah.
If you weren't
I was always
present, or
confused
if you
about that.
recused from one of the items, because that
I never really
just,
watched them
just makes
like
the
in
whole
habitat.
process so cumbersome.
Maybe that is a pheasant. Its head looks like it.
Okay,
that's been for years, so, yeah.
seeing that at 6 o'clock p.m., we'll go ahead and start the Design Review Board meeting. Today's May 26th, 2022. Roll call. We'll go ahead and see who's in attendance. Member Sayer,
Present.
Member Greer,
Present.
Member Dupereau,
Present.
Member Merrill, excuse me. And let the record show that Chairperson Grubb and Member Mayan are not present at the moment. We'll go ahead and call to order, and we'll proceed into item number 3 with this consent agenda. All consent items are action items. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and are acted on with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a design review board member or city staff member requests an item to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed on the regular agenda in a sequence determined by the rules of order. Any item on the consent agenda that contains written recommendations from the City of Eagle shall be adopted as part of the design review consent agenda approval motion unless specifically stated otherwise. With that said, I'd stand for a motion if I could.
Mr. Chairman.
Member Merrill.
Motion that we approve the consent agenda as it stands.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
I wasn't here, so I didn't vote.
And we were just, we're gonna address that at some point in the near future about consent agenda items, and that I think there's some clarification that legal can provide for us. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, moving on to item number 4, we have unfinished business. Action item DR 0722 is the vehicle storage building associated with the wastewater treatment facility for Eagle Sewer District. I see that the applicant is present. If you would like to come up and present your updates, and if you would also just give us your name and address in the meantime, please. I think this podium here, and if staff could help if you need.
We have to keep a copy of it as well. This is something new.
My name is Lowell Alseth. I'm with ZGA Architects and Planners. The address 300 East Mallard Drive, Suite 325, Boise, Idaho, 83706. And if I can get this open. So at the April 14th Design Review Board meeting, direction was given that we must incorporate a gable or hipped roof to match the existing operations building, and the roof overhang should be the same as at the operations building. So the roof structure has been revised, and here's a rendering showing the revised condition. The color palette and materials and textures remain as before, which matches the operations building. And those colors I have on the sample board, I can pass that around again if you like.
Sure, bring that up, please. Thank you.
So to quickly review some of the specifics of the revisions, like I said, the roof structure has been totally redesigned to match the hip roof configuration of the operations building. And I have a photo here. That's the existing operations building. This is when it was still in the construction stage. So there's, construction activity going on, but it gives a good idea of the hip roof configuration and whatnot. And then another picture which shows the completed, and this is also shown kind of in conjunction with the overhead doors, because that's kind of what the vehicle storage building has. So it's kind of a close approximation. The roof overhang on the vehicle storage building, we've actually extended it a little bit further than what you see in that photo in the operations building, because the vehicle storage building is taller, and that provides a better proportion that's in keeping with the actual building volume. Which, again, back to the rendering. Lost my place. Hold on a second. And briefly, just some of the exterior treatments. These are actually resulting from the suggestions made by the Design Review Board on March 24th, and were included in the April 14th presentation, and they've remained to the maximum extent possible with this new building configuration. And I'll just, whoops. So there's the elevations just to see all four sides. Some of the items then that are still on there is the precast concrete lintels and sills are retained at the glass block windows to emphasize the horizontal alignment of the windows. The Baja Brown masonry around the base of the building has increased in height for better proportions with the height of this building. The two-color horizontal band of masonry added above the building, around the building above the overhead doors. There's two courses of the Baja Brown, and directly over that is a single course of the canyon rust in the ground face masonry, and that is at the top, which meets the soffit, which is now on all four sides of the building. The color of the fascia was changed from the roof color to the sandstone color to match the operations building. The gutter, which is now necessary on the east elevation, as well as its downspouts, are also the sandstone color to match the operations building. The Design Review Board final motion on April 14th also included a suggestion to include an ultra material if there is an opportunity to do so, because, as stated in the motion, the building has a lot of block. With this roof configuration revised to match the operations building, the extent of the block has been greatly reduced. This, in conjunction with the block colors and textures, makes it unnecessary to introduce another material. And now that the building has a roof surface that's sloping down to the east wall, which is where the doors are located. We are compelled to add a gutter along this east side of the building in an attempt to prevent rain and snow runoff on the east side of the building. And this is as a measure to avoid the icing of the doors and the concrete apron, which could inhibit rapid response if there's a sewer emergency that has to be dealt with. And I have a couple of photos here just showing where the building is located as viewed from across the street, behind those landscaping. And then a photo of the existing site. This is just south of where the building is located. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. So this is the revised civil drawing. It's this revised, the drawing was in the original package, but now it's been revised because of the addition of the gutter and the downspouts. They had to change the drainage. It's routed around the back of the building to get over to the detention swale that's still on the south side of the building. Another topic to be discussed is regarding the landscape drawings. As a reminder, I just showed you a few photos of the existing sites, so let's keep those in mind. The site-specific condition number 4 requires the landscape drawing to be stamped by a licensed landscape architect with assurance that the dryland grass seed is of the appropriate mix and proper application quantity. And so this is the revised landscape drawing. Just to reconfirm, the dryland pasture grass is for restoration of pre-existing conditions and erosion prevention. The dryland pasture grass seed mix and its application rate is indicated on this drawing, and this drawing has been prepared by a licensed landscape architect, and it's stamped accordingly. And so for any further clarifications on this, I think we'll turn it over to Bruce Taylor. He's our landscape architect.
Evening, Bruce Taylor, Jensen Bouts Associates, 1509 Tyrell Lane, Boise. So we did join the design team a couple weeks ago and to look at the landscape. And we didn't propose any major changes to what they already presented. There's still the rock around the building. We're still showing dryland seeding to the south, those disturbed areas. But what we did do is just look in more detail at the specifications for the seeding and the soil prep. We actually are showing 2 different seed types. The area north of the operations building is irrigated, and so we are matching the grass that's there, which is a fine fescue mix. And then the area south will be dryland. That's what we're proposing. But we are spelling out in more detail the process of making that a successful germination for that dryland seed. And we also did look at the mix to make sure that the seed mix is appropriate for our annual rainfall in this area. So I'll be happy to get into more detail if there are any more questions about that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Did the applicant, the architect, have anything to add, or because we'll bring it back to the board for questions if there are.
No, that actually covers everything that was placed upon us. So we just, if there are any questions, we would be open to listening to, talking about it right now.
Fair enough. Questions for the applicant?
I think you covered it.
Okay, hearing none. Well, if you have nothing else to add, we'll hear from staff. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Emily Giroux, planning staff for the record. So again, this is the vehicle storage building for the Eagle Sewer District. This application was continued from the April 14th meeting to address some changes with the building architecture, the landscaping. So on your screen is the previous revision that you did see at that meeting, and then the revised on your right. And again, the previous landscape plan, and then the revised that was provided in your packets. The floor plan did not change. And then building elevations, the previous building elevations, and then the revised that are now in your packets. And again, those color renderings. And then the lighting plan did not change as well. Again, some site photos of that operations building, and then site photos that they showed of the existing landscaping. So issues of special concern were regarding the building architecture, existing landscaping, and then there were 2 site-specific conditions. So again, the building architecture has been deferred to the board. The existing landscaping and the new proposed landscaping is also deferred to the board. The metal roofing, so site-specific condition number 3 required the metal roofing to have concealed fasteners. Their building elevations do state that the standing seam roof will have concealed fasteners, so we can strike site-specific condition number 3. And lastly was the stamp plans, and we did receive building elevations and the landscape plan that are stamped, so we can strike this site-specific condition number 4 as well. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Any questions for staff?
Questions?
Hearing none. I think we're good. We're going to bring it back to the board for discussion. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Anybody like to start and chime in, please?
Sure.
Member Dubrow, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, since the landscape was of particular concern, I reviewed the seed mixes and their site preparation procedures, and I don't find any objection to what they're proposing at this point. I also think the switch to a hipped roof is a real improvement. So I have no contest with this application at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else like to chime in?
Mr. Chairman, yeah.
Member Merrill, please.
I think that they've kind of gone the extra mile in addressing the roof. I like the gutter around the trim on the roof. I think that is another addition of breaking up some of the color on that. And I think the landscaping looks good, and I think it's time to move on.
Okay, great. Thank you, Member Merrill. Anybody else like to say a few words? Or
I think they've
Up to
done what
Mem-
we asked them to do, and I like what the new plans are, so
wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, Member Sarah. Joe, do you want to say anything, or you all?
I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I wasn't here previously, but based on the photos, it definitely looks better.
Great, thank you. I would agree. I think it's a great improvement. I think, we struggled as a board with the shed roof, primarily because that broad, the upper portion of that, the portion that is in front, above the sectional doors, that just seemed to be very broad and without detail. I know we had talked about a different material, but I think that hip roof really brings it down into more human scale. So I would agree with the board's assessment, and I think it's a great improvement. So we appreciate you working with us on this. Thank you. With that said, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve DR 0722. And with site-specific conditions of approval 1 through 11, with the exceptions of striking site-specific conditions number 3 and 4. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
discussion.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we're going to be raising some turkeys in the background out here.
Are we raising turkeys?
They're already there.
Nice field.
I've been told there's about 40 to 60 of them.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
think there are.
In that area, on the property.
No further discussion.
All right. No further discussion. All those in favor of the application say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to new business. We have item 5A, which is DR 0309, Mod 3, excuse me, Restored Community Church Building, Restored Community Church. Is the applicant here? We do have them. I think either podium, Emily, do you?
Either.
Does it matter, or this one's probably fine. If you would give us your name and address and tell us about your project, please.
You bet. I'm Matt Garner with Architecture Northwest. I'm filling in for Randy Haverfield, the applicant tonight, who couldn't be here. So we're here just representing the Restored Community Church. They're proposing to build a new religious facility there on their site. They have an existing building on site that they're using now as their church, but they've outgrown their walls, and so we're proposing a new building. And so I'll allow staff to present what we have proposed, and I'll be here for any questions after.
Okay, and your name again, please?
My name is Matt Garner.
Matt Garner. Okay.
Yep, with Architecture Northwest.
Okay.
Address is 224 16th Avenue South in Nampa, 83651.
Okay. Before we let you go,
Sure.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Just
Not right off the bat.
right off the bat, we may have some other questions back.
Absolutely.
Have you had a chance to review the site-specific conditions and standard
Yes.
conditions? Are you comfortable with everything that's been
Yes, sir.
labeled
Yep,
put there?
absolutely.
Okay. Like I said, we may come back, but we'll hear from staff then.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this application is for the Restored Community Church Building. The site's located on the south side of West Floating Feather, and it's just north of Eagle High School. The site plan and north is left on this screen. It's a long, narrow site, so it was easier to turn it. And site details that have the bicycle rack and the trash enclosure. The landscape plan that was in your packet, along with the fence details. The lighting plan. And floor plans, the main floor and then the second floor. The roof plan. Building elevations, and then we have color renderings of those elevations. And material board. So with that, issues of special concern, the building architecture, which is deferred to the board, tree removal, landscape buffer, fencing, some interior parking lot landscaping and widths, some parking spaces that are more than 60 feet from a planter, some LED lighting, stamp plans, trash enclosure, and then ACHD emergency access, and I will go through each of these. So again, the building architecture has been deferred to the board. The tree removal, the applicant's proposing to remove 6 trees. They're proposing to mitigate for 2 of those trees by adding an additional 18 2-inch caliper trees. And so on your screen are the 6 trees that are proposed for removal. So with site-specific condition number 2, as we typically write, if the city approves the removal of the trees and accepts the mitigation for the ash and spruce tree, then no additional trees are required. If the city approves the removal and requires mitigation for all 6 trees, then the applicant would be required to add an additional 138 caliper inches of trees or 69 2-inch caliper trees to the site. If the city approves the removal of the trees and requires mitigation for the 6 trees, then the applicant may opt to pay an in lieu fee into the fund in the amount of $24,150. Or the last option would be any combination of planting additional trees or contribution if the board required additional mitigation for the other 4 trees being removed. Site-specific condition number 3 is regarding the buffer along the east property line. They have 99 plantings proposed and 27 are evergreen. Eagle City Code with a buffer requires 60% of the plants to be evergreen, so they would need 60 of those plants to be of evergreen type. So we would need a revised plan, so that is what site-specific condition number 3 is asking for. The fencing locations along the west property line have been deferred to the board. So currently, the property directly to the west, so on west is at the bottom here. The property to the west of this site has a 2-rail open style fence that goes to approximately this location where my arrow is showing. And then they have a solid fence to this point. Because this is a commercial use adjacent to a residential use, it does require a buffer. It would be a 5-foot wide by 6-foot high buffer, and so they are proposing to add additional fencing along with landscaping to address that. So they're proposing to add the solid vinyl fencing. The drop down would be further up here, but so the vinyl fencing to this location, and then stop it because otherwise you're going to create a tunnel with the solid fencing that's already existing on the property to the west. Then again, restart the vinyl fencing and then carry it through to the end of the parking lot. So I'm happy to have a further dialogue about that if we need to. Site-specific condition number 4 is interior parking lot landscaping. I calculated 7.3%, and they're required to have 10%, so we just need to get a little bit more landscaping, adding some additional interior landscape islands to meet that 10% requirement. So site-specific condition number 4 is asking for that revised plan.
Emily, can I stop you right there?
Yes.
So with that percentage, is that including, I mean, they've got this intermediate landscape area that's, I'm looking at. I'm just trying to make sure that what you account for that interior landscape.
The interior landscaping are all of these interior planter islands.
Okay, so it doesn't include this center area that I see there?
It does not, no.
Okay. And I assume that's, maybe it's a question for the applicant, but is that just some sort of a drainage swell area or?
I will defer to the applicant on that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but okay.
Oh, you're fine.
Fair enough.
The next item is just interior planter island width. There's a few of the islands that are less than 5 feet wide, and we require a minimum of 5 feet wide. So this is asking for those widths to make sure they are 5 feet wide. Site-specific condition number 6 is regarding parking spaces located more than 60 feet from a planter. And we don't go across the drive aisles when we calculate this, just to clarify. So in this drive aisle, you can see there's one on the end, but there's nothing in between. So they exceed here, they exceed slightly here. So, and with that additional interior landscaping that they're going to be required to do with site-specific condition number 4, that will help this cause as well. So they should be able to.
Ask you a question. How are they doing on parking? I don't know if I saw from a parking count, or do you know if they're
I think they're
barely
well
meeting or
over.
exceeding?
They are
Okay.
exceeding.
Okay,
They're required 175, they have 239.
fair enough. Okay.
So
Okay.
they have plenty.
Okay.
Site-specific condition number 7 is just asking for our building elevations to be stamped. So when we do get revised building elevations, we'll make sure those are stamped. Site-specific condition number 8 is regarding the exterior lighting. They're showing 4,000 Kelvin, and so we're asking them for a maximum of 3,000 Kelvin. The trash enclosure material and colors is site-specific condition number 9. So we're asking them to show the materials and colors and also show that the enclosure is constructed of materials and colors utilized in the construction of the building. And lastly is the ACHD emergency access only drive aisle. That's site-specific condition number 10. ACHD will only allow this main existing drive aisle. They'll, however, allow this southern one, but it will be an emergency access only. So they will still have this drive aisle, but it will have bollards or a gate. And so this site-specific condition is asking for a detail of what that's going to be. And with that, the summary on your screen, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Questions for staff?
Emily, was there any discussion with the applicant of the removal of the tent during the just construction, or how that's, what are they going to do for the congregation during the period of construction on this building?
Member Merrill, once the new building is built, that tent will go away,
Okay,
along with their modular building.
okay. So it's in front of that then,
The new church building, yes.
okay, and the property behind it will be playground? Where the building?
So the new church building is here,
Yeah,
their existing building, and then the tent in front of it.
right.
The tent will go away. There's also a modular building that will go away. They do have a playground
Okay, that's what I.
back here as well. And they are keeping the existing church building.
Oh, that remains?
Correct, yes. So they have an office and a church building now that will remain, and then the new church building will be built.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Member Merrill. Anybody?
Yes.
Member Dupro, please.
Thank you. Emily, is there any particular code governing the width of the eastern landscape buffer? I'm specifically concerned with the area adjacent to the existing church building, where the applicant's proposing basically a trellis against the fence.
Are you talking in this location where I'm pointing out, Member Dupro? This is
Yes.
existing today.
Right.
It's just gravel.
Okay, does that need to be updated
It will be
per the
paved.
code? Okay, it'll be paved, but we don't have to widen the buffer at all to accommodate, because that's a residential subdivision adjacent to it as well, right?
It is, and there's an existing fence there. There's also a fire hydrant in this approximate location. And because it's an existing building, I don't know that we would get any more. The fence will be essentially the buffer in that
Okay,
location.
that buffer doesn't need to widen to 5 feet per the current code.
I will have to think about that one. Technically, yes, because it's a drive aisle. However, it's existing like that today. When they did the addition to this existing church building, it wasn't required to be widened out. So all the landscaping, well, there isn't landscaping along this portion, but the fencing and this drive aisle location, and I believe because of the setbacks of this building, there's not an opportunity to widen that.
Emily, I'm sorry.
No,
go on.
please, Member Merrill, please.
I didn't want to finish, Dave.
That was my only question.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Emily,
Member
can
Merrill.
you pull a Google map up overview on this for that area? Because I'm confused about it also, as we've got the drive aisle, we've got a part of a buffer, and we've got a gravel and a fence, and I'm confused about the whole thing. But that happens, but,
So they have the paved drive aisle here in this location, and then it stops right where the existing church building is. There's an existing fence along this eastern boundary.
drive aisle, where's Floating Feather Road?
To the north.
To your north, right here.
Okay, there we are. So they've got the long drive aisle coming into the property off of Floating Feather.
Correct.
And how wide is that drive aisle, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can double check the plans. Let me check.
And the property to the,
It's 26 feet wide.
26?
Yes.
The property that's headed to the west of there, the front part of Floating Feather Road, the commercial, other side, let's see, yeah, that one right there. You said, is that commercial?
It's residential.
It's a residential, and it has a fence along the side of it?
Correct. There's a fence all along this east side.
What type of fence?
I believe it's a brown vinyl fence. Let's see. It is. Let me take these lines off.
Okay, that helps.
And then on this side, this isn't quite up to date, but you can see there's the 2-rail. And then it changes to solid.
Okay, go back to the brown vinyl.
Okay.
Thanks, and can you walk us down that drive aisle?
I don't believe it'll let us go into the drive aisle.
Can't walk it. Okay. Not quite, can you? Where, I don't see where the break is, where the gravel is in the fence going into the next.
This is updated as of 2019. This drive aisle is now paved,
Okay,
so it's not quite updated. So this was the previous gravel drive aisle that they were permitted to use while they were using the existing building. And now that they're building the new one, they're required to have the paved. And they have paved this drive aisle. And then,
it's flush to the fence then without anything in between?
no, it will have the 5-foot buffer.
Just until it gets to the existing building, and that's when it tapers down.
Correct. Let me see if I can see better.
Yep, that's the
right
pinch,
there.
that's the pinch point.
Right here is where it pinches, and it's because of where this is located.
Okay, that makes sense, thanks.
Any other comments from board or questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman.
Member Dupro, please.
I do have one more question. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Emily, on the tree list that we looked at, there are only 4 trees that are on there slated for removal. If I'm, unless I'm mistaken, but there are 6 on the landscape plan.
Which plan did you only see 4?
Not the plan, in the table. Yeah, that would be on page 5 of the packet. It looks like they have 4 cottonwoods labeled for removal on the landscape plan, but we only have 2 cottonwoods labeled for removal. Hey there. They're cottonwoods, so it's not a big deal. I just want to make sure.
I will make sure that's updated. I'll figure out which ones I didn't mark correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Member Merrill, please.
Emily, do we have samples? Any samples of this building?
I will defer to the applicant on that. All I have is the material sheet that was in your packets.
But no actual samples?
I don't have any. I don't know if the applicant does.
Do we have any samples, sir?
We can bring,
We just created the digital one because that was what they wanted us to submit. So you got the digital right.
Okay.
That doesn't quite do it for me. Okay.
any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Do we want to bring the applicant back up for do you have further questions, or do you want to just go?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, Member Gardner, please, if you wouldn't mind. And if you wouldn't mind restating your name and address, please.
Matt Garner, Architecture Northwest, 224 16th Avenue South, Nampa, Idaho, 83651.
Great, thank you. Member Merrill, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little disappointed that we don't have any kind of a presentation from you as the applicant on this presentation on this application here. Particularly, we don't have any of the actual sample boards that we've always asked for, so we can actually see the real colors on them. They are sometimes different on the renderings than they are with that. And, we've had some questions, and not being able to have you walk through us what you're doing and how you're doing it makes it really difficult for us to make a decision on it that is fair to the rest of the applications that come into us that have those items with us. So, I would like to see those, and I don't know if the rest of the board would or not. I think we're kind of stumbling through as far as trying to get our answers answered with fencing and whereabouts and how it fits in with the lay of the land and the actual size of the buildings. We don't have the sizes and the heights and the widths and, gutters or anything else on there on any of these kinds of things. So I'm a little reticent. I'm moving this forward at this point. So I don't know if you have anything else that you can bring to us or that, but I'm thinking that maybe we need to bring this, it's not quite ready.
Board Member Merrill, I apologize. Yeah, when we submitted to the city, they encouraged us to have the digital board. And if we needed to have a physical board, we could have submitted that, but they don't take the boards when we submit them. So it's an oversight. If we didn't bring it here, I apologize for that. But I am willing to answer any questions you have, and with any of the presentation that we have up here by staff.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gardner, so it does, I think it does state on the application about the materials being brought to the meeting. So it is pretty critical for us to to deliberate and to look at those and to kind of assess the architectural aesthetic. So I agree with Member Merrill. It is an important piece of the application. In addition, just wanting to make sure we understand the project, how are you handling mechanical units? How are you handling certain other design features? I agree. I mean, I think it's something we can get to, but we are lacking a little bit of information right now, in my opinion. But I don't know. Does anybody else on the board have anything to add to that? I'd just like to get.
I agree. I think it's missing.
Member Sayer, can you add to that, please?
I agree. I think it's missing detail that we usually see.
Okay. So just so we give you clear direction, what we really, I think is imperative for us to have are material samples and a little bit, more detail about the design, the approach to the design, how you're planning on screening mechanical units. I guess I could ask that. I mean, if you're willing to address that, I think some of these things you might be able to address verbally, but some of them, I think we do require some more visual information, but please, if you want to.
Yeah, so if you go back to the roof plan, can you go back, or can I do it? I guess I can do it here, right? Okay. So here's your roof plan, and so this is your parapets up here, and so down in the flat portions of the roof, the HVAC units will all be screened behind that parapet wall. And if we go to this one here, where you see this, where my cursor is, can you see it right there?
Yeah, you can.
There's a ST1 is pointing to this wall, and right above there you see the mechanical area well. There's a lower area well there for the lower HVAC units. So the others that will be on top of the sanctuary will be up in this area up here, but then you have that lower section right there that'll screen some of the additional HVAC units that'll be there.
Okay. What types are the windows? Are they storefront, or are they vinyl, or are they?
I believe they're aluminum frame windows.
Aluminum, I guess like a storefront, you're saying? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't, again, I don't know if it was on that board, if you had the color on that or material selection.
It's not on this board here. No.
Okay.
But I think it was an additional piece to the packet, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I understand, sure.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on just in terms of, just so we understand the project you're presenting here, so we can get a clear picture of it? It's important for us to have a clear understanding. Can I ask you, before you get to there, can I ask you about, from the parking standpoint, any concerns on your side or any contention about the site-specific conditions regarding the undersized planters and landscape?
Certainly, yeah. So your question about the retainage, right? So you have the retainage swale, and obviously out in the middle of there, they're not going to be able to plant anything because that's where the drain is. But you can see that there's plantings all the way around that swale, and so I would contest that. Yeah, we do have plenty of landscaping out there, but I also see where staff was presenting that we have a long run here without a planter bed, and so I agree that we should probably have one at least intermediate here. But I would contest that is landscape because it's going to be planted with trees and
it's possible you could get to that 10% with the larger landscape planting strips, which seem to be undersized at this point. Is that a fair statement? Or?
Yeah, because I think she said that we had some undersized ones as well, so those will grow. And then if we add some of the intermediate ones in those longer runs, then yeah, we should get to that.
Okay.
No problem.
And I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think you're losing a whole lot of stalls. I mean, if you're already over, I can appreciate you trying to maximize where you can. I get that. But it seems like there's a little balancing that we could get to. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other, no, please.
So, and then, like staff has pointed out, if you, trying to see on here, as we've gone through and made sure, if you see some of these little dashed lines that are around here, we've gone through and planned the site to be able to make sure that the fire engines or the emergency vehicles can get access all the way around the site where they need to. And so this spot over here where it is too close, where we can't get that planter bed in there, that's just, allow circulation to get around that end of the building. But everywhere else in the site, emergency vehicles will be able to get there and get hoses dragged everywhere they need to go.
Can you clarify something for me where you were just talking about, Emily said that there had been a modification to the existing building that made it impossible, and it looked from the aerial that we were looking at like the building comes closer to where that drive aisle is than where it shows on your site plan?
I don't believe there's ever been any modification. I think the building is where it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
it's always been there.
So then from the image on the landscape plan, that would be existing landscape improvements, turf and foundation plantings in that area to the east of the existing building, right there where the 16 keynote is?
Where my arrow is?
Right. Seems like we could cut that down in order to increase the buffer width up against the fence and still maintain circulation.
Yeah. And we have a representative from the landscape architects here if they want to answer any questions about what that is and if there's existing and if we can cut that down. If that is.
Okay, and then just while I have you, regarding the site-specific condition, was it site-specific condition? I'm sorry. Yes, number 10, the drive aisle for ACHD policy. Do you know what the applicant is, where they're leaning on that? Are they going to close that entry or bollard it and sign it? Do you know?
I know that it's going to be closed. It's not going to be used, but I don't know what the device is. Have you had any conversation with Randy?
Other than it just being a
Yeah.
gate.
That's what he's leaning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the intention is to maintain that second entry, but block
Yeah, it'll
it.
maintain there, but it will be
Except for
blocked with a
emergencies.
gate, just a pipe. Yep.
For a gate, you said, is that accurate?
According to the owner, he's had conversations. So Randy Haverfield is
Sure.
my employer. He's not able to be here.
Sure.
But they have had conversations, and according to him, they're leaning towards a swinging pipe gate.
Okay. And is this in Eagle Fire District, or is this Star? It's Eagle Fire. Okay. And to your knowledge, have you guys, I don't know if I've seen a report from them. I was looking earlier, but I don't know if we, have they commented on that?
That report is there not? Yeah.
They may have. I may have just missed it, so.
Yeah, it's like the next to the last page.
Oh, thank you. I got too many papers. Okay, so the, okay. So they've, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that they've had a chance to review it and you guys are comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, hearing none. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
We'll
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Anybody like to start off?
Mr. Chairman.
Member Merrill, please.
Yeah, I would like to continue this item and bring it back with some specific requests that we address. On the building, I'd like to, I keep looking at these sizes on got a couple of parapet walls, one on top of the other almost, it looks like, on A5. OD, I guess is what it is, the exterior elevations. I'm not finding these sizes on those buildings. I've got a 16-foot, but I don't have the inside one of those. I'd like to see those a little better defined. I would really like him to come back with where we can stamp and let this, also the architecture, I'd like to see the sample boards that are a little more clear. The one that we have with called the Restored Church doesn't give us a number on it, but it looks like the printing on it didn't come up quite the way they probably would like to have it, with a lot of different stripes coming up and down this, and the variations of the colors on that are not clear to me as to what they're going to be, particularly the Languedoc tan or the spice cedar, or some of these others that are in here, including the shingles on for the roof, and some of these other colors. So I think it's better if we can see those in a little more clear. I'd like to see a little more clear on the plantings around the building, a little more definition on those. The legend is so small, the keystone's so small to read, to be able to see all around the building of what kind of actual plantings are there. Mostly that's it. I think that fence that it's broken up along the end, that's concerning to me, as we have a fence and then we have a gap and then we have a fence, and they're not the kind of same, or the buffer that's in there. So I'd like to see that. And yeah, I just don't think we're quite ready for this, and probably other things that the rest of the board might be able to see what else we're going to do with the trees. With that, the mitigation of the trees needs to be decided, and the size of the solid fencing. Are we going to stick it? It dips down, and then we don't have the size of the solid fencing. Is it going to match the brown vinyl, or is it?
Are we talking about the west one? Yeah,
Is that?
yeah,
Okay.
I believe so.
All right. So yes, I would like to see that a little better, a little more clear.
No, thank you. I remember all the great comments. Appreciate that. Thank you. Member Sayer, if you would like to chime in, please.
I didn't see, and maybe it's listed there, the color of the fences are going to be brown on one side and white on the other.
Yikes.
Well,
I know they have white rail
on the west.
fencing that they're going to replace with the vinyl, right?
On the other side.
Mr. Garner, can you address that, please? Do you mind, real quick? I want to make sure we get an answer and to give them clear direction here, please. If you please state your name and your address, please. Thank you.
Josh Reneker, 1450 West Bannock Street in Boise,
Okay.
702.
The question is just if you can clarify the fencing solution there, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so the existing fencing on the east side is the brown that we saw on Google Earth, and that was already there. So that goes the length of that. We were just adding the plant buffer in the 5-foot space. And then on the east side, there's a couple different fencing types going on with the split rail, and then it breaks up and there's a solid piece. And that's all white. So yes, one side is brown, one side is white, but the idea is both sides will be the same color. So yeah, that's kind of the existing condition out there. And then on that west side, we are proposing to, bridge those gaps with solid white vinyl fence that would match the existing solid white vinyl fence that is there. It's all, it would all be 6 feet tall, the brown fence, the white fence on east or west side. It's just one side's going to be brown, one side would be white.
Okay. Member Sayer, do you have any further questions on that?
I guess as long as he's up, maybe we should ask him about the extension of the planting bed around, and we wanted to have the wider buffer.
Around, where are we talking about?
In the parking lot.
On the east side.
Where the building pinches.
Okay.
So the existing landscape there is, there's some turf grass, and then right up against the building, there's some foundation plantings. Those would have to be removed. You know, I mean, I guess technically you could widen that. You know, we tried to mitigate that and meet the intent of the code by putting up a trellis where we could do some vine plantings where it gets really narrow. So we're still getting some vegetation screen, you know, it's not just gonna be plants and then a blank wall and then plants again, you know, we're trying to kind of make it all look cohesive. But there, you know, as you notice, there's the planter bed, I think it goes from 5 feet to 2 feet, you know, just enough to get some vine plantings in there to grow on the trellis. And so that was our approach to that.
I know they're existing, I just think it's odd that they're two different colors on the one side to the other, and they're probably butting up to neighborhood fences that are already lining in there, so that's kind of a hard thing. And then do we have exterior building lights at the entrances? And
Maybe a question for the architect?
Don't see those on here.
I don't know that I think it's quite well. I guess we could ask the architect if you could answer that question for us, or we just want to make sure we get clear direction for you here. So, please state your name again, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Matt Garner, Architecture Northwest, 224 16th Avenue South, Napa, Idaho, 83651.
Great.
On the lighting plan, I believe that they have the lights. So you have the lights for the buildings. Can you see them right there where my cursor is? I think that's the building lights there. And then you have the parking lot lights. And that's what was used to generate this photometric plan.
Okay,
So those would be your general, like, safety lights that would be around the building, but there'll be probably additional soffit lights where the canopies are and things like that. But for the most part, the lights on the site that will be generated for this photometric plan would be these lights right up here.
so maybe they should be called out, the additional soffit lights he was talking about.
Or shown on the elevations.
Mr. Gardner, do you show the wall packs on the elevations? Do you know? Are they?
No, they're not on those. They're not on that rendering. No, the wall packs would not be on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something we do want to see where they do fall. So it's probably a condition we can provide. Yeah.
I think that's all the trouble I'll cause.
Okay. Thank you, Member Sayre. Member Greer, anything?
I feel like the 5-foot buffer should be continuous all the way down the east side of the property.
Okay.
I think that needs to be looked at.
And just so I'm clear on that one, so to maintain the 5 foot, it would just you would have to pull back what's in front of the building. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. So if we look right here on this part of the building, you see where that landscaping's at.
Yeah.
What you'd end up doing is basically wiping out almost everything that is landscaping on that end of the building, and your drive aisle would come almost up to the edge of your building because you'd be pushing everything over to get that 5-foot buffer.
Okay.
And honestly, I would contest that would probably be more awkward looking than actually having it go over by the fence and come around.
Doesn't the drive aisle narrow right there anyway?
Yeah, it is narrow right there, narrower than the 26-foot that's over on the rest of it.
Yeah, it was looking to me like keeping that narrower drive aisle would allow a little bit of a landscape buffer against the building, even if we widen the property buffer to 5 feet.
Yeah, and that's just speculation on my part. I'd have to go back and look at the widths that we have there to get, see if we can maintain a minimum width of that drive aisle and still get the landscaping in that we need. And that would be something that we just have to look at.
Is that minimum width just 20 feet is all we need? Or?
I believe it's 20 feet, yeah. 20
feet, okay. Member Dupro, did you have any thoughts about that tree mitigation? I just wanted to make sure that.
I'm comfortable with the tree mitigation as proposed. I think the cottonwoods can go.
Okay,
and the mitigation they're proposing for the spruce and the ash are adequate.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So we had from the staff report, we have a couple different options. So was it the first, basically what was stated in the condition, the first item? The first option.
Yeah, we just
with replacing with.
We would eliminate the if and then remove all three options after the ors.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, please, Member Merrill.
Also, Emily spoke about the number of, where's my notes here, of the evergreens, to move up the evergreens to 60 from, what do we have now, 40-some on the
60%, I think is what the.
60%?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. We need 60%.
I think that would be helpful, now that we're at this this spot right now, and we have site-specific conditions of approval, if we can tie all this together and give them that back as a package, they can fix it all and bring it back without having to go through another review and another look at it with staff and one member of the board. So we have the site-specific conditions of approval with some suggestions from staff. If we agree, concur with that, applicant can move forward with that. We can fix the trees. We've got the number 4 was increasing the landscaping on that, deciding whether we are or whether we aren't going to request that or require it. And then on the site-specific conditions of approval for the trees, on the mitigation, on in our ors, which one are we gonna do with that? Are we gonna approve the removal and accept the mitigation for the ash and the spruce, which I think is what Mr. DePro is recommending? Okay, which would mean that we would not do any of the rest of those. And then the number 6, what was the rest of those? We needed to increase the interior landscaping to up to 17%. Emily, did you say? Or 10%?
10 total.
Minimum.
It's at 7, I think, correct?
From 7.3 to 10, I think is where,
Oh, okay.
7.3 is where we're at.
Showing a minimum of 10. Correct, you're correct, right.
Real quick, just before we get to that,
Yeah.
Member Merrill, any other questions for the applicant? We can bring it back for that discussion if that's where we're at. I just want to make sure
I don't have any other
any
questions.
further questions for the applicant?
I do have one.
Member, yeah, please, Member Dupro.
With regard to this existing concrete drive on the east side and the way that everything is designed on here, is this envisioned as curb and gutter everywhere? The reason I'm asking is because I'm still looking at the drive aisle adjacent to the existing building.
Right.
And wondering if there's a curb there.
I don't know if there's curb there, but I think that, yes, we are going to have curb and gutter throughout the new additions of the parking lot, but I'm not sure if we have any called out over in that area.
Okay, yeah, it looks like the line type is different, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's pretty small.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Member Dupro, and for the applicant, I just want to be clear. So we're talking about all edges of that asphalt parking area to have a curb and gutter.
Well, that's what it appears. I was just
Versus
thinking that
this
again, that on
soft,
this,
yeah.
on the existing edge there, it doesn't look like there's going to be one.
Okay, and I guess what I'm hearing from the applicant, I just want to make sure that we're clear that that is what it's being proposed. Is that accurate, or?
In that area, I'm with Board Member Devereux that it does look like there's a double line there, which would indicate that maybe it is a curb there, but I can't see it from here either, so I would have to double check that and make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments or thoughts with the applicant? Please.
Question, Mr.
Please.
Chairman.
Please.
On your same page of the A-5.0, on your keynotes here, you call out on number 14, a thickened parapet with a thickened pre-finished metal coping. Can you tell me what the color is on that, on the coping on that, and the top on the roof of the building there?
I think that it's intended to blend in with the color of the wall.
So,
If I just go back here. Well,
It looks like
at the top of there, it looks darker, and so it'll be an accent color. But I don't have the specific color for it right now.
if you could get that for us, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
too. That does look like an accent color on most of that, but I can't tell if it's a shadow or if it's color, so that would be great.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll bring it back for further discussion with the board.
Thank you.
You bet, thank you. I'm in concurrence with Member Merrill about the detail that's needed, and from a coloring and material samples, it's really important for this board to have that information to really make a decision. So I guess my only question for the board, and just want to throw this out, is throughout this discussion, at some point, are we comfortable with the number of conditions, or do we feel like, are there too many conditions to make a call today for any kind of decision versus continuing it? So I guess what I always struggle with is if there's enough information for the board to make a determination on the materials and colors. And from what I've seen, I just struggle with not having enough information at this time. But I'd like to hear from the other board members on that. Member Dupro, sorry not to put you on the spot, but
To be perfectly honest, I differ with the board here. I feel like the digital board that we were supplied is adequate, and paint colors don't always come out quite exactly like the sample board when they're applied in the field anyway. From a material and color standpoint, I'm comfortable with the package as presented. My issues are more with the design of the building, and unfortunately, I don't feel like I'm the right person to articulate all of them. And that, I was hoping that we would get the architect on the board to weigh in there, but if you're leaning more toward getting plans with better detail, then we should probably wait.
well, and Member Dupro, I'm not finished either, but please. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the architectural design. Please, if you wouldn't mind adding.
I think without the rectilinear two-story addition, the building makes a fair bid at being a decent representation of a Craftsman or a Prairie-style building. As it is, like I said, I don't really know how to articulate what I'm feeling about it, but I think that there's a conflict between the two building styles. It almost looks like two buildings were put together. And I think that it's unfortunately not an attractive combination. I wish I could give you better details about that.
If I may, Member Dupro, is it fair to say that, east and north elevations carry that theme, but then the south and west seem to depart from it?
Yes.
Pretty clearly.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and I think on the north elevation, I know we've seen this before, but the parapet mechanical well there it really detracts from the overall appearance of, I think it would be a very attractive building on the north elevation without that rectangular block on top of it.
Right. Yeah, and I would even add, even if that was maybe necessary for screening purposes, could it be scaled down a little bit? I think it feels a little top heavy from, even if it was required to provide screening for the mechanical units, if that's what it's in fact providing. Mm-hmm. I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, if you wouldn't mind, on architectural components, because we can. Member Greer, would you like to chime in? Not to put you on the spot. But.
I'm in agreement with the east and north elevation carrying the Craftsman style. Not that the south and west don't look good, they just don't marry well together for me. And the parapet walls do seem a little high. So
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't have anything new.
Any further thoughts, Member
I
Sam?
concur, but I would like to see more details. I'd like to see it continued.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a combination of things. It's one in how to, really understand what we're looking at, but also.
It's to be in writing to document it.
Right. So.
Goes forward.
So Emily, for question for staff is if we make a motion for continuance, do we have to provide any specific conditions, or is it just a continuance, but we can provide clarity to the applicant? Is that sufficient in?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. You won't add conditions.
Right.
You'll continue it, and then with the direction, what you would like them to
Okay,
revise, provide additional information on.
okay, great. So any other further discussion, I guess?
Mr. Chairman.
Member Merrill?
One other thing I didn't see on this, and then maybe there isn't one on there, but the ground-mounted mechanicals, I don't know if there are any. Are there any ground-mounted, any other mechanicals on site for this building?
Please state your name again, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Matt Garner, Architecture Northwest, 224 16th Avenue South, Nampa, Idaho, 83651. Board Member Merrill, I do not believe that there are any ground-mounted. I think that they're all the RTUs.
Okay.
Okay.
Either inside or up on top then.
Correct, up in the mechanical wells or on that higher parapet, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Member Gardner, since we have you up here, Mr. Gardner, excuse me. The parapet height is that, do you know if that's driven by the height of the mechanical units? Or are they just barely screening that? Do you know?
I think that the height of that, and I'm just speaking just from top of my head, right? But I believe that the height of that is because that's a two-story sanctuary. There's two-story worship space that's in that area, and that's why the height is there.
Okay.
And so I don't think it's all driven by the screening of the mechanical units. I think part of it is driven by the actual height of the roof structure.
Okay, great.
But I would have to verify that, but yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion, or I guess I'm going to just, I can make a motion. What I would like to do is make a motion to continue this application with the following, I guess, just maybe more comments and to address, I'll start with the architecture. If we could look at the west and south elevations to bring those more in harmony with what's happening on the east and north elevations in that craftsman style. They seem to, I think, from the board's perspective and interpretation, is that they seem to depart a little bit from that. And I think that's an important aesthetic application to make sure that there's harmony, among the elevations and cohesion. I do believe also with this motion is if we could get materials and color samples, that'd be really helpful. I appreciate what Member Dupro said. I mean, if there weren't maybe other issues, we could probably just review that with staff and a board member. But I think since we are going to, at least my motion is to motion for a continuance, if we could see materials and colors that you're proposing. I think as far as site-specific condition number 2, it seems like there's consensus that the board is comfortable with the proposal for the removal of the trees as proposed in the mitigation for the new ash and spruce trees. And so any other further mitigation would not be something that the board would be pursuing. I guess I'd just like to have that motion, and if there's any further discussion or a second.
Second.
We have a second. I have a motion, second. Any further discussion from the board? If I left anything out that might be helpful. Member Dupro, please.
I'm not sure exactly what you all were looking for in terms of additional architectural details. But if you wanted to give any guidance as far, I think Member Sayer mentioned gutter and downspout locations, and I think just some additional dimensions probably on the elevations to show where things are going to be located and mechanical units, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'd also, I think I would tend to push for a site redesign around the existing building.
I agree.
To widen that 5-foot buffer all the way down its length.
And to pull back the landscape around the existing structure?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And with regard to the other site-specific conditions, looks like about 4 through 7, those would hold for me, just the ones that are on a revised landscape plan.
You're saying that the way that the site-specific conditions are written would hold?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay. Member Sarah.
Do we need to request a gate design for the fire department gate?
I think
I know they said they were
Well,
gonna put one in.
I
Have they
think
called out
for the
what it
applicant's
is?
sake, I mean, it'd be helpful if we could provide that. I think technically it's something that we'd want to see prior to the issuance of a zoning compliance certificate, but if it's something that could be provided prior to next time we visit with you, I think that'd be helpful. So, but not, I don't know if I'd say a requirement. It's just something prior to zoning compliance is the way I'd look at it. So.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
So I have a motion and a second, and then we have an amended comment regarding the additional landscape along the perimeter fencing along the east side adjacent to the existing building, and to provide further clarification, I guess, on the design aesthetic.
5 foot.
Yes.
5 foot, okay. So we have an amended motion. I guess I need a second on that.
Does the second concur?
We have a motion and a second, and no further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And if there's additional information, I think staff can help you guys. Just appreciate you bringing the project in front of us, and I think we'll get there. It's just need a little bit more information at this time, so thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. With that, we have new business item 5B, which is DR 3322, a new restaurant building in Truman Cove subdivision, number 4, NCRF Properties LLC. And with that, I'm going to recuse myself as we are going to be presenting that project. So Member Merrill, if you do the honors.
Be happy to.
Okay.
Don't do them as well as you.
No,
See what I can get done
I
here.
doubt. I think you got this.
Okay. You want to start them down there, the girls, the other girls down there, and that'd be helpful.
So what material is this? Like it was scalloped on one side.
It is. This is the scalloped piece. So I'll explain that.
Okay.
It's a kind of a custom thing. So.
Okay.
Yes. Before we get started, is anybody missing a part of their 5B? I have 2 of them.
Mine might have floated over your way. I don't know.
On your large ones.
Okay,
I
yeah.
should say restaurant F.
You know, that might be mine. It might have floated,
Yours?
but that's okay. I know.
You don't need it? Okay, that probably is yours, all right.
Got it?
Hopefully that's stuff. It's a catch-all. That's got like my whole life in there.
Not this linen stuff. I have to take a copy of it.
Presentation, yes. So, and then that's the sky.
Print them out and put them
Oh.
in our minutes now, so we have to take it out.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Dave?
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Walter Lindgren with Lindgren Labrie Architecture, 247 North Eagle Road here in Eagle, Idaho. This is an application for a new restaurant at Eagle Lakes subdivision, which I think you're all familiar with. Actually, it's considered Truman Cove subdivision, but we also known as Eagle Lakes. This is just an aerial shot of some of the most recent developments within that area. So you'll see State Highway 44 here in the new Jovino's site at the corner, a new inline retail building that we refer to as building inline B, building D, which is a multi-purpose office, 2-story office building, and then building E, which is, again, a 2-story office building right on the lake. So this is creatively called building F of Eagle Lakes. But But as you may or may not know, this is actually going to be the new barbacoa of Eagle, so, which is really exciting for Eagle. And we don't know if that's going to be the name that's going to be applied, but the ownership and the brand and the quality of restaurant is coming to Eagle, which we're really excited about. Unfortunately, Nikolai Castro could not be here tonight as he is running a restaurant, so that's just the way it goes. But he would love to have been here to talk a little bit more about the project and his vision for it. I do want to just kind of highlight some of the photos of the area. If you're not familiar with this area and haven't gotten back there, this where my cursor is what we call Building E. We have Flagship Foods Services in Cascadia offices that operate out there. And so the building pad for Building F is right here to the west. This is another shot as you come into the development. You'll see Building E, and then Building F will sit right in this pad here and with an adjacent courtyard, which we'll describe in some detail here this evening. This is just the overall site plan for you to get oriented. Again, buildings D, E, and then the new Building F barbacoa restaurant that'll be adjacent. Again, so just a little bit about the site and some of the decisions about how the building and the elevations of the building came to play. So one of the things that was really important for the applicant was that they wanted to have a tiered area within the restaurant. So I thought this site plan was important to illustrate. What happens is you come off the sidewalk. We've got shared parking, which is ample enough in terms of serving the existing office areas as well as this restaurant. So we're not asking for any reduction as far as that goes. So from a parking standpoint, one would come to the site and either, if from an accessibility standpoint, have access to a ramp, but also a stepped up area and a courtyard, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But basically, that is raised up more or less 24 inches from the grade of the existing sidewalk. So once you enter that, you're already elevated in that space in the waiting area, as well as and I have a floor plan I can illustrate what that is. But we have a bar area here, and so that is actually at plus 24 inches from the sidewalk, and then the kitchen and dining area, this is the kitchen area, and then the dining area actually sit 30 inches below that. And then that is also flush with the patio dining area, which overlooks the new lake area of Eagle Lakes. So just want to kind of give you the setting of how we're establishing these elevations. One determining factor is I think it's the 2-foot plus floodplain line, and that's really what's establishing this elevation of the patio dining area as well as the kitchen. So we can talk a little bit further about that. As part of this application is we are connecting up with the existing Building E with a courtyard. Right now, Building E is just kind of finishes off on the edge of the building, but doesn't really have an edge to it, and was kind of waiting for this project to come into play for it to provide that connectivity. So again, as I mentioned, we have this stepped up area that provides that kind of a pre-functionary space for the restaurant. You can also step down, and then we have this series of kind of this sawtooth, planter wall area that sits adjacent to the building and kind of creates this unique environment for this cascading in terms of plan, but just this plaza area that connects you down to the beach of the lake itself and further steps down to the beach elevation. So, we had to work through certain things as far as accessibility and egress from the patio. So all those things are being met. But in the meantime, kind of creating a nice, really nice environment in between these two buildings, and just a nice vibe. And this kind of just shows some of the different details for the landscape. These steps down to the beach front are just more natural stone, and then we've got these lighting bollards throughout that courtyard area that provide these real smooth stone cuts with some low voltage lighting within those. And I know we have a representative from South Beckenberg that could address those in further detail. Kind of alluded to the floor plan, just kind of give you a sense of how this is laid out with the entry and waiting. The bar area, as I mentioned, is elevated above the general seating area. This is just a preliminary seating plan, and it's probably just going to evolve from here. But the whole idea is that we've got this larger kitchen area and a second floor that is serving as just some storage area for the kitchen use. And then this wonderful, really kind of organic ramp that comes down to the general seating area. One thing that's really maybe not clear and maybe that hasn't been really discussed in our application as much is we've got this really beautiful wine wall that will sit here. You'll see in the elevations, basically it's a one row deep of wine that's sitting sideways that'll be displayed. So when folks are coming in, and if my understanding is when they do come to these the Barbacoa restaurants, there's two in Boise. There's not a long wait, but the idea is to create some visual interest within this courtyard. So this is from the exterior as well as the interior, just a beautiful wine wall to display there. One thing to address also is the mechanical system, and one thing we've really tried to do is keep the parapet levels down. For the adjacent buildings, primarily the one that's immediately adjacent, but also for Building D, which is across the parking lot. And so in most cases, it's just a one-story building, but there's also a desire for that restaurant space to have some volume. And so, we've been got creative about how we are locating the mechanical units within mechanical wells. And so what you're seeing here is the areas that have some more or less 6 foot plus deep wells that will house not only the air conditioning units for the restaurant and bar area, but also we have got exhaust fans and makeup air units that are required for the kitchen area. So as you'll see, you can kind of see this is a section cut through there, and so this is kind of the stepped roof areas as you enter in, and then this is kind of indicating, how those mechanical units will be screened from view. So, and then this is the kitchen area. You might see in plan. I might just real quickly read. So this section cut is being cut through here. So I'm going to come back to this kitchen area. So this is the kitchen area with the stair leading up to the second floor storage area, and you can see we've got plenty of parapet conditions that are going to screen mechanical space. From an elevation standpoint, I want to talk a little bit about the massing and colors. I think it's important and excuse me, very, very important approach for this project, and something we thought a lot about. I did mention about that wine wall, so you see how the kind of indicates these racks that will be set up in the window system, and kind of I think it'll be very attractive both from the exterior and interior. Architecturally, this is really takes a lot of themes from the Prairie style, which has got a lot of strong horizontality and these repeating vertical elements, and then this interlocking of elements, and that's something that we've already have in that subdivision as it is, specifically with the two office buildings. This just takes it to another level. So you'll see how we've tried to keep these parapets down. 122. I think this parapet's 123, and again, no mechanical units in this area. It's only when we get to the back area with the kitchen that we bring that up and are able to hide those units. From a coloring standpoint, I think you have the materials. I'm not sure where they've ended up. We have a combination of stucco, a stone veneer, and a lightweight concrete material, and I want to show this as an inspiration for the project, because when you have these large kitchen areas, they're large. They can be large masses without windows. It's not desirable, and in this case, we thought this was an inspiration from a restaurant in Scottsdale called Ocean 44, which has a scallop, and in Barbacoa, I think the name is going to be Koa, but we're not 100% sure. but they're going to have more, of their menu is going to be more focused on a seafood type menu. And so the idea was, why not highlight this wall that is more solid with more of a decorative siding material and kind of create this scale-like siding material. And so that is the concrete material that you have. I'm not sure where it ended up. That more or less represents, it's more of a custom material, and that more or less represents the color. My understanding is that we're not going to have as much pocketing in it as that material represents. But you can see in terms of how the material is going to be sided and the scale of it. So, and as I mentioned, this is the north elevation that represents the vast majority of that material. And so trying to create a nice iconic element, even though there's not fenestration. There's plenty of fenestration elsewhere, but just not where the kitchen and restrooms are going to be. As I mentioned about materials, we have that lightweight concrete, and then the combination of this Northstone stone veneer that you see in the material samples, as well as a black storefront material. Again, this is the rear side, which has great views to that lake. We want to capture that for sure with the patio, and then a nice clear story element that brings in natural light into the restaurant. One thing also to bring to your attention, there's a sample of the shade screen, similar to what you might find at Coins, which has the automated shades that will protect in winter and summer if necessary. So those are going to be at each of the bays of the columns. You can see here. Hopefully, you can read that okay on the elevation. That each of the 5 bays will have that retractable shade screen.
What colors? I'm sorry.
Remember, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lindgren.
Yeah.
Which one of these colors is that?
It's it's aluminum, and I think it's the larger one. I can point it out to you. Yeah. It's called out as aluminum, so it's in the tones of the color scheme that we have here. The shroud itself will be a metal shroud, which will match the fascia colors, which is that black or inkwell color. Another thing to comment about the colors, the direction we took was to get away from more of we have some lighter woods on the building D across the parking lot, some other woods on building E, and what we decided to do in this case is to create a unique architecture and coloring scheme which has more of I don't know, would you call it more of an elegant or more of a sophistication versus, bringing in other woods. So you'll notice even the softening color, for example, and the sample that we provided is even a darker sample. So it's creating this I don't really call it a moodiness, but it's just a unique experience that is, again, consistent with what Barbacoa does present to its clientele. This is just the back shot along the lake. Again, to kind of show the wonderful patio experience, and then the clear story that brings the natural light to the area. And then this is just a shot what it would look like from the street side. Again, the scaled siding material, the stone in the front, and then the variation of color of stucco colors. I think with that, I'll stand for questions.
I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking.
Please.
Mr. Lindgren, just above, adjacent to the ACOA, you've got your parapet that stands up there, and it's that one right there.
Yep.
Talk to me about what that is, what the materials are, and how you're presenting that.
Yeah, so it's just more of a hierarchy. Again, it's probably a little less function than it is, just providing an element. There's so much horizontality with these bands that you see, and again, indicative of a prayer style is to provide a vertical anchoring point, and so everything kind of emanates from that anchoring point. And so, being in solid and strong and everything else being light with the light storefront. And so from a material standpoint, that is the Northstone stone veneer product you see. So real clean elements, just a real level of sophistication, I think.
Variation.
Yeah. But that is the stone material that we're proposing for that vertical element. That's correct.
Thank you. questions from board? Any other questions? Terry?
No, I'm thrilled with it.
Gorgeous.
Joe?
It's gorgeous. I don't have anything.
Okay,
Well thought out.
anything on the landscaping?
Okay, for staff.
Okay, staff.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't have a lot to add. Walt just went through a detailed presentation. There were 3 items for issues of special concern. The first was the architecture that has been deferred to the board. Next was just getting some clarification on the LED lighting band, which is site-specific condition number 2, and how that's going to be reflecting on the building but not up. So just some additional details for that. And lastly was the pond easement. There's a pond easement along this pond, and the patio area encroaches about 5 feet. So I know the applicant is working to amend their CCNRs to allow this improvement in there. So this is what that is asking for, is we'll need a copy of how that is revised. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Board, any questions from staff?
No.
Joe?
Does the applicant agree with the conditions?
Yep.
And is there a comment? Sorry.
And Walter Linger with Linger Liberty Architecture. We do, and to address that easement, it is something that is being worked out. We're confident it will be worked out. It's just something that's taken a little more time with staff, and so, but yes, we agree with everything that's been stated, so thank you.
Okay. Anything else but staff? Okay, let's bring it back to the board. Any discussion? Dave, want to start? You seem to be the point man tonight.
No, I think this project is well designed and detailed, especially from a landscape perspective.
Yes.
I think they gave us everything we could ask for. I like the color scheme. I'm not sure that everyone will, but I appreciate it. I think it's going to blend well with what's already there. No, I support this project. I don't have any conditions to add.
Terry?
I think it's a beautiful building. I think the design and the color scheme fits well into the area that it's being proposed for. And I have no negative comments at all.
Joe?
You know, when I interviewed for the board, they did ask why I wanted to be on the Eagle Design Review Board, and because Eagle sets a precedence, and I think you have just upped the level of what people are going to expect.
Nice.
Madam Chairman?
Dave?
Sorry, Walt. There's, if there were one thing that I were going to object to, and just because everybody's being so nice, I feel like I have to say this. I'm just, do you have someone here tonight who can speak to the choice on the bench and the trash receptacle? I don't know if that's governed by the neighborhood, or because the Magdalen bench that's on these detail sheets just seems out of keeping architectural style.
Member Dupro, let me, I don't know if I have that on my slides. I may not.
It's detail
this guy
3
here.
on sheet L1.2.
Is this the one you're referring to?
The bench and the trash receptacle, yeah. Mostly the bench.
And so just I want to make sure.
Scroll work seems at odds with the linearity of the rest of the design.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I'm not sure how to answer that. So your contention, and I apologize. I have not studied this aspect also closely. So just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Yeah, that's like a typical 19th century New York street wrought iron bench.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to, Adam, do you want to? Yeah, give us a sec, yeah, please. Adam, please.
So, yeah, Adam Johnston with South Beck and Baird, 2002 South Vista, Boise, Idaho, 83705. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think on taking a look at the building and the aesthetic of all of that, I think we will be changing this. I believe actually we found out there's an existing pad where these benches are going. And so things have changed around a little bit. And I'm thinking we might actually end up going with a backless bench, something a little more modern, to both like have access of, like if you're waiting, next to the parking lot or views of the lake. And so, yeah, I would agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
And that will be changed.
Anything else? I think it's a dynamite building also. I think it's very beautifully in here. I love the fish scale. I think that's a dimension that we haven't seen in here. And I think it's gonna, being a seafood type of a restaurant, it's gonna really stand out and look beautiful in that area along that pond. And I think it will add a nice addition to the rest of those buildings in there. So I think a nice job. And with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve whatever this is. DR-33-22, the restaurant building in Truman Cove, subdivision number 4, with the site-specific conditions of approval and adding site-specific condition number 11, that we change the elevations of the benches and the trash receptacles to model the design of the building, and that comes back to staff for approval. So, second?
Second.
A couple of seconds. Dave and Terry, any discussion? Further
Madam
discussion?
Chairman,
Dave?
I would only say that I wouldn't necessarily have elevated the bench to a site-specific condition.
Okay, just do it.
If they want to make the change, I was just curious, really. But we can leave it on there as a condition. I think it should probably be approved by staff and one member
Okay.
if we're going to leave it on there.
All right, then I'll amend the motion to have that approved, the bench and the trash receptacle approved by staff and one member. Second to concur?
Yes.
Second. Who all's doing second?
Okay, Dave and Terry. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Nice job. Thank you. When will it be done? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Okay. Moving on to the next. There's a
Talk to you soon, yeah, thank you.
familiar face in the
I was
crowd
gonna try
over
to,
there.
yeah,
Mr. Porter.
yeah, I want to make sure. I'm just gonna pull it, because, yeah.
Nice. There's a familiar face.
That's a gorgeous building.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, I love so.
Appropriate where it is. It's not down.
Dimensions.
Is it just this? Okay, because I have to take a copy of it.
Can you take over?
I'll try.
I think this might be yours too then.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know how. Great, thank you. We'll go ahead and proceed to new business item 5C, which is, let's see what we got. Design review, DR 3722. It's a new office, medical and dental building in Lakemore subdivision, represented by Dan Torfin and James Marsh with CCH Grade. appreciate it. If you want to state your name and address and let us know about your project.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very excited to be here tonight to present this for you. Jim Marsh, CSHQA Architects, 200 Broad Street, Boise, Idaho. I might just bring up the material boards just so you can circulate those during the discussion.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Is that the sofa?
It's metal. That's your.
Oh my God, it's just a long cord.
Yep.
Looks like bamboo.
It's
We'll kind of quickly start off just with the location too. Locations on Eagle Road, Colchester, and Three Bridges Way here, kind of circulated here with the orange color here. Directly to the west is the water feature, and the Three Bridges subdivision will make a beautiful black backdrop for the building and that's being proposed here tonight. To the south, directly to the south, another water feature in an undeveloped portion of the Lakemore commercial subdivision. Just down off the page, down at the bottom of the page would be the Crave bar or restaurant and grill, vacant to the north, and some residential to the east across Three Bridges Way. Starting real quick here with the site plan, a little bit of an aerial overlay. Looking at a one-story office building, about 6,650 in square feet. Main entries facing east. Currently, there are two approaches off of Three Bridges Way that'll be utilized. One here on the south portion, kind of where my cursor is. Another here more towards the north. Both are planned to be utilized. Pretty straightforward parking layout, locating the building close to the water feature to make that nice backdrop as well. Just to the north and to the west on the adjacent side is the sewer pump and lift house, which you can kind of see right here with my cursor. That is encased with a fence, wrought iron fence at this time. A couple of things to note here. These two red lines that kind of cross the site here, that's the access easement to that pump house right now. So we're proposing no structures over that easement and kind of relocating the drive. The existing fence and access is right here, so that will be maintained. The applicant and the sewer district have been in discussions about this. The plan is to basically deed additional easement up over the top where the drive aisle is too, and that is allowed within the language of the easement. Other items to note, entries on the center, we kind of did a nice little plaza on the entry feature coming in, so there's kind of a staging area, pre-function kind of as you enter the building. To the north is a little patio area that could be utilized for guests or for employees. Currently, at the moment, there is not an exact tenant. Most of the interest right now is on the medical office side, so that's kind of the direction that we use to develop the design. Towards the top, trash enclosure. Couple of utilities here just right about this area is going to be where gas and power enter the building. So jumping next towards the landscape plan. And just for the record, the applicant, Dan Torfin, is here to answer any questions, as is Josh from Rodney Evans and Partners on the landscape side. So if there's any specific questions concerning either of those two, they're present as well. Landscape plan, beautiful already, say backdrop as well, and a fairly nicely landscape plan. The perimeter landscaping is already in along Colchester and Three Bridges Way. And a nice palette here, and like I say, any questions that you might have for the landscape, we can certainly have them address. Some kind of perimeter landscaping with this little seat wall next to the plaza towards the north, which we think will be a pretty nice, enjoyable area for, like I say, either guests or employees. Architecture style. Little bit of a modern twist on prairie style, but pretty heavy towards the prairie style here with long linear lines. Again, kind of a strong base with this darker color being a precast concrete, which you'll see on the material board. Main color field of the lighter color is a stucco material. stone accents as well as some wood accent. In this case, in some of these cases, it's actually an aluminum wood, just mainly from the maintenance standpoint. Architectural asphalt shingle with a black frames for the metal windows, as well as the accents for fascias and gutters and such. So top view here on the perspective is the entry view with the tall entryway with the clear story windows to kind of make a grand entry. You know, the window patterning and the mullions on there are representative of kind of the prairie style of architecture. And then the bottom view, that element carries through towards the Eagle Road elevation as well. It's just for some continuity. HVAC units in this case, we have a proposed mechanical well on the top. You can just see a little bit of that wall right here, right here, and kind of right here. So we're trying to minimize that as much as we can, trying to provide about 5.5 feet of vertical screening, which we think will be sufficient for the rooftop units that we'll need to serve this facility. These are just straight on elevations. I think perspectives are usually a little easier to get the feeling for the building, but we did bring this in where we can see the material callouts and the actual flat elevations of the building. Finally, this is just the roof plan here, showing kind of where the mechanical wells are here on both sides of kind of the flanking top. So I believe that is it on our side. If there's, we have reviewed the staff report and are in agreement with staff's recommended conditions of approval and site specific. Like I say, again, we have other members here of the team. If there's any questions that we can ask, at this time I'd stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. All right, hearing none. We might have you back up, but if we can hear from staff, that'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the applicant went through all of the information that I believe I also have. So I will go down to our issues of special concern. Building architecture is deferred to the board. And so again, on your screen, those building elevations and the renderings. And then site-specific condition number 2 is just asking for this light pole located right here to be a maximum of 15 feet tall, since it is within 50 feet of this property to the north, which is currently residentially zoned and a residential use. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Great. Any questions for staff? Okay. Hearing none. One thing, and maybe it was a question back for Jim, is just since Mr. Germano is no longer on our board, we always have to talk about downspouts. So I think, I don't know if I saw any, and I think maybe just as a condition, we might want to just provide that information, prior to zoning compliance, unless I missed something. I know it's something that we always kind of gloss over sometimes in design, but we do want to understand how the drainage is happening, and I assume it's by downspouts, and you want to address that maybe?
Absolutely, yeah, downspouts, and then we would tie line those to the underground system too. Anticipating that we can get underground seepage beds to work. If not, we have had some pretty good luck with strategies with pervious pavers.
Okay. So yeah, probably just condition. We just want to see where those are located and how they affect the elevation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Member Merrill.
Just one clarification, if you could. So what I think I'm seeing is that the rear perspective is facing Eagle Road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that blank wall that's there with the smaller windows is not shown on your perspective drawing here, but on your other L1 as being landscaped against that wall to help break up that linear wall.
Which are you talking about? This elevation here that I have my cursor?
I think it's on 4, I believe. It's the left side of 4, your rear elevation.
Oh, yes, left side of 4.
Yeah,
yes,
there
right
you go.
here.
Is that?
Yeah.
Here.
This one's different.
Is it slightly different on that one?
Looks to me. I can guess that's the same.
No,
Yeah.
that's it.
It's the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, we can look at the landscaping on that as well. And to be quite honest, on those, we anticipate some exam rooms here on these sides. And that's the thought pattern here is to keep the windowsills a little bit higher so you can still provide that. If in fact that they come in that those may want to be offices or something else, we'd work with staff on a modification that drop that windowsill and provide some more glazing in those locations.
I just want to make sure from the Eagle Road side of it that it's got enough of the taller landscaping to break that up a bit.
Yeah, there's pretty good sized tree right here, and then can certainly, like I say, have Josh go into it in more detail. But there is a pretty hefty landscaping on that side, as much as we can, and about 8 feet of distance between our property line. And then there's a fairly decent vertical grade there down to the water feature.
Well, that's right, we got a pond there too.
Yep.
Okay,
Any other questions for the applicant?
nope, thank you.
Great.
Is the building lighting all soffit lighting?
The only building lighting we have right now that's in there is going to be proposed is going to be some soffit lights right now. And these are not really proposed to be much for area light, but just some slight accent light that's going to actually be on through the building itself. So they don't really show up in the elevation since they're a recessed can in the soffits.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll bring it back for discussion. Anybody like to just start?
Mr. Chairman?
Member Merrill.
I think it's a nice looking building, a dental building in there. It'll probably be with all those residents, it's probably going to be a nice business for that. So I like the materials on the building. I don't know, Dennis Torfin and Baker are kind of short on their trees. But actually, it's very adequate for trees and landscaping as always. So I don't have any other objections to it.
I don't have any objections.
I think it's a great looking building. I think it's going to fit in well. It's got a nice, real great lines, and and especially even any concern about that rear elevation. I think there's just enough landscape and separation. Yeah, there's just, and again, even if there wasn't, I think it's still appropriate. So my opinion, but I think it's just nice project. So I don't know if there's anything else we need to address from this.
Yes,
Member
the only thing I would say is, with reference to one of the earlier projects that we considered tonight, I think this project blends the parapet unit or the parapet
Agreed.
screening into the roof line much better.
Agreed. It's scaled appropriately. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that. Any further discussion or thoughts? Okay. Hearing none, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve. Track where I'm at, and I apologize. DR 3722, new office, medical, and dental building in Lakemore subdivision, with site-specific conditions of approval 1 through 9 as provided by staff, and then with the addition of site-specific condition number 10 for the applicant to provide just an updated elevation identifying locations of downspouts and color material to be reviewed by staff and one member of the board. That's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Appreciate it. Thank you. Great job. Yep, we got materials up here, so I want to make sure. Somewhere.
I love the wood grain.
We use
You use that too? I love it.
we use some soffits. It's gorgeous stuff. It's not cheap.
Probably lasts a long time too.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to, from a fire rating, we had to use non-combustible, so,
It's gorgeous.
yeah, it's great.
I have not seen it used like that. So.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's gorgeous.
moving along. Let me find my agenda here. Great, so, item number 6, we have reports. Any reports from the board? Any thoughts? No? We're all good there. What about staff? Maybe you can give us an idea of what we got coming up next meeting?
Chairman, next meeting, might possibly have the Restored Community Church back. I'll work with them and we'll see if we can get revisions in time.
Okay.
We have Arbory Crest Townhomes, that was originally, pardon?
Which one?
The church that we just,
Townhomes
no, prior to that was the church we just reviewed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where's the townhomes?
in Arbory Crest off of Highway 16 and Beacon Light.
Oh, okay.
So I've been working with them. They were going to go this meeting, and then we were still working through some issues. So they'll be going next time. And then I believe the Residence Inn Hotel in Molinari will be coming.
Hotel there?
And
Is
that
that
should
gonna
be,
be?
pardon?
Where will that be?
Over in Molinari, where the right-in, right-out is, next to Crunch Fitness,
Okay,
on the west side
It's
of the right-in,
the
right-out.
farthest east portion of Molinary. So before, yeah, right, just west of the right in, off the highway, yeah.
good.
Great. Anything else we need to add?
No.
Let's get out of here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
So moved. Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
I really appreciate we get a quorum. I mean, it is